instructionists go on to be in the classrooms, to be not something that happens at 3 o'clock, because you're not there in the classroom hands-on directly with teachers. So there's the administrative task, which can be done, at different times. And then there's really the focus of supporting ongoing instruction. And the other piece of this is really just at the middle school and high school. We don't have any support, or very minimal support at the elementary level.
Should we be losing all of it, both the administrative tasks that they can do after school and the classroom support? I mean, we're getting.
I think there's some level, I think there's discussion about stepping back and seeing, can we do this in another way? Can we be sharing with another community? A whole lot of areas, but at this time and place, it's not what I would put out there. I would leave it on the list, but it has somewhat of equal weight to, and anything on here is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what's more difficult than the others?
Right.
The items that I've just put out here tonight, I think are difficult, and not what I would be doing under any normal circumstances. But I think given the severity of the economic crisis that we're in, and I expect to be in for the next period of years,
Yeah.
I think we have to make this decision.
I was just wondering if there was a way to do it different, or to some degree. But if you think there's ideas in the works on how to do it K-12 in a different fashion, then I trust the administrator.
Okay.
So if, I don't expect the committee is in a position to make a vote tonight, but it would be helpful as Carl starts to formulate a budget so that you have a better understanding of what that looks like. Because right now you just have the preliminary budget. And so we have to work, unless you're saying the preliminary budget is where you want to be.
You mean the level funding?
The
services.
The level services budget, and I don't,
No.
No.
We can't afford that.
so,
I mean, I don't think we can afford that. No, we can't.
Well,
Then-
I can support these. Are you looking for us to support your recommendations so far?
I'm not asking for a vote. I think just I listen to what people have to say and, consider. But I have to give, Carl needs some direction in terms of starting to, put another round of numbers together to see what does this preliminary budget look like with these numbers out. I think items under level 2, which were presented, are again contractual issues. And discussions will be ongoing. This deals with the Board of Selectmen's statement on wage freeze, which I think was made public and was distributed to all town and to all school department employees. But we understand that different employee groups, most of the employee groups are covered by a labor contract. And in the school department, the labor contracts negotiated for this year, next year, and the year after include paraprofessionals, secretaries, custodians, food service,
And office, non-union?
and the
office-
non-union, correct, non-unionized. And all of those contracts have negotiated under fair terms last spring wage increases for the coming year. And so a statement that says a wage freeze, asking for a wage freeze for a union that has a negotiated and signed labor contract has no value unless you ask to reopen the contract, and only that can be done if it's mutually agreed upon.
Well, we can ask, but they make the determining factor is the union.
Well, it has to be agreed on both
Correct.
sides. But in the case of any contract that expires in June, the end of June this year, and will be under negotiation, that's a subject for upcoming bargaining. And that would include the teacher contract, and that would include the administrators, principals, and the North Reading Administrators Association, two assistant principals and the two directors. And I will point out that in all of those contracts, the principal contracts, while the administrators have a contract signed for next year already, there is no salary increase in that contract. So that becomes a discussion. I am not recommending at this time, but I think looking at numbers, we know that in the level services budget, the preliminary budget, there is an amount of what's titled the salary pool. And that is an amount of money that we have put in to under, you need to approach this in a fair labor way. But that amount is for teachers, nurses, and administrators was $306,440. That's not committed at this point. And then I believe that I asked Carl to determine if there were no step increases, what that amount would be. And that is $273,330.
And that's just for teachers, right?
Teachers,
nurses,
nurses, and administrators. And again, it's on here because it's easy to predict based on the current salary scales and the current placement on the scales where, what that salary would look like with a step increase. But we can't recommend at this time putting those numbers and counting that in the budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before the school committee takes a position on any reductions, I'd like to schedule a public forum and a budget workshop.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna take any positions tonight. No. I mean, the only position that I'm taking, and this is my individual position, is I feel we have a sum of money that the town has said we can spend on the school budget, and I think that's the budget we ought to work toward, the sum of money. Because I'm not gonna be involved in recommending any sort of override, and I think given the current economic times, we're just gonna have to work with the numbers that we have.
No, I agree with that.
But I don't think we should take any positions tonight. As David said, I guess we can find out before the next meeting. We either have to vote on a budget number by the next meeting or on March 9th. So that does give us time to schedule. We actually have our budget hearing is March 9th, right, isn't it? Our public budget hearing? So that gives us a couple of weeks to schedule.
Except that next week is February vacation.
Right. So we can,
So
I don't think we need to schedule
we can
3 meetings
schedule
like we
then.
did before, because one of them, the afternoon one, we had like 2 people in attendance. I think if we did a morning and an evening, that'd be sufficient.
And these are not, their budget forums
Right.
would be open to discuss these items and anything else that anyone wanted to bring up.
I mean, I'd like to see if we could schedule 2 of those, I don't know what to schedule, but in the meeting the week after next.
But I think we do need to give Kyle some direction so he can start putting together some kind of priorities priority order, or at least give us some kind of, subtotals of where we're meeting our mark.
I think you have. Feel free to give me more, but
No, I can
I'm comfortable
support
at this
this
point.
first round of priorities that the superintendent has outlined. I think these are probably the easier ones out of this list.
I think what I'm hoping to do is rework this sheet to show the differentiation we've made today.
Okay.
Possibly call it levels 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
And then on Friday, we will have another budget figure, I suspect, another available funds figure.
Right.
Right now, the gap is about 1.4 million between this budget and the available funds. So as of Friday then, we'll include on this sheet kind of a scorecard, if you will, that shows what the gap is.
Kyle, I guess my input would be that I certainly go along with the 357,000 that we talked about tonight as the first priority cuts. But I'd also say if you could, and because we're so bad at adding, but if you could put together what the total would be without eliminating any of the teaching positions, that's 4 at the high school, 2 at the middle school, 3 at the elementary school. And we could
Well, there's
probably
more
do
than
that.
that.
What's that?
There's more than that. There's the technology, there's the library,
Those paras.
Yeah, I think
Well, I'm
start
talking
with
about
classroom.
teaching now.
but that's,
Yeah, but that's fine, and that in the technology teacher as well, because we already eliminated the sped teacher, that was part of your first priority recommendations. But my point is to add, to subtract the teachers out, you could probably do it right now.
Yeah, it's 4 at the high school, 2 at the middle, 3 elementary.
And then
That's
see what
9.
that number comes to, because I guess that would be, just generally speaking, my priority would be to preserve the teaching positions and make those the last cuts, obviously.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if anybody would disagree with that, but I think the teaching position should definitely, those 9 positions, or maybe it's 10 if you
10
include the
positions, right.
technology, should be the last that would cut.
And if you do that, and you have those 10 teaching positions, it gives us a better idea of what we have to work with at level 2 maybe as well.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, the other thing is, as David mentioned, talking about the salary pool and the money for step raises, I mean, that's just all up for discussion in terms of we're in negotiations with the teachers, and until those negotiations are finished, we don't know what those
No.
categories are going to have in them for numbers. And we've just started, so I wouldn't expect a number there for a good couple of months, hopefully.
and I do think we need to push and get an answer on the benefits, because that will add up, even at this, there are some positions that have a benefit. Every time there's a position, there's a benefit that goes.
Well, I would think too that the benefits, though, we wouldn't get the entire reduction for that, right? I mean, if the benefits.
We're
come
already
off the
always
top-
charged for it.
We charge for the full
We charged
rate.
for when we added teachers.
When we had a teacher, we have to add on, what,
The
$8,000, $10,000?
Right, but that comes off, that comes off before
Well,
we get our budget.
right, but then
out.
the- right,
Only
that's
when
right.
you want it back. But you're right.
You're right.
If the town's paying for half of it when we get the benefit, they're not gonna reimburse us the whole amount when
Correct.
we don't get it, I don't think. We can try that, though.
We have, in the past, they have been generous in the end. I just wanted to comment that, it came up again this week, I heard someone say it. There's the schools, they look for money, and as time goes on, it's found.
Right, and
And-
it could be found again. I was just gonna say.
We have to
I
find
just-
it.
Wait,
What are we
people
gonna do?
need to understand that the revenue forecast, it's fluid, and it has to be. Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen are working diligently to nail that number down, but you don't want it nailed down, because it would have been the small number that they were projecting last week. So they need the time to really zoom in on a lot of estimated numbers, and they're constantly relaying that number to us, and that's why our number moves. So it's not that we're finding money,
Right, and-
it's a budget process.
That's an excellent point, and I think what also makes this year a bit unique is that we already know next year's local aid.
Right.
you know, here we are in